All right, so President Biden came out and did a speech here going after Donald Trump. Donald Trump was at a rally recently, and he basically said about NATO, hey, would I protect the NATO countries if Russia attacks them? And he says, well, if they didn't pay their dues, no. And in that scenario, I would also tell Russia, do whatever the hell you want. He said something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the gist of what he said. So Biden thought this was worthy of an attack here. Let's watch, and then we'll react to it.
We are a great nation that the rest of the world looks to. And I mean that. The rest of the world looks to us. The stakes are already high for American security before this bill was passed in the Senate last night. But in recent days, those stakes have risen. And that's because the former president has sent a dangerous and shockingly, frankly, un-American signal to the world. Just a few days ago, Trump gave an invitation to Putin to invade some of our allies, NATO allies. He said if an ally didn't spend enough money on defense, he would encourage Russia to, quote, do whatever the hell they want, end of quote.
I should be clear that what he's talking about is that $95 billion bill that got through the Senate and then died in the House. The bill gives $60 billion to Ukraine, $14 billion to Israel, and the rest goes to the Indo-Pacific region or Taiwan. That's what he's referring to here when he's talking about, oh, this is necessary, this is important, we have to do this. And then he's also throwing in his attack line at Trump here.
Didn't spend enough money on defense, he would encourage Russia to, quote, do whatever the hell they want, end of quote. Can you imagine a former president of the United States saying that? The whole world heard it. The worst thing is he means it. No other president in our history has ever bowed down to a Russian dictator. Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I never will. For God's sake, it's dumb, it's shameful, it's dangerous, it's un-American. When America gives us word, it means something. When we make a commitment, we keep it. And NATO is a sacred commitment. Donald Trump looks at this as if it's a burden. When he looks at NATO, he doesn't see the alliance that protects America and the world. He sees a protection racket. He doesn't understand that NATO is built on fundamental principles of freedom, security, and national sovereignty.
By the way, if he sounds like he's with it in this clip that you're watching, it's because I have it on 1.25 times speed.
Because for Trump, principles never matter. Everything is transactional. He doesn't understand that the sacred commitment we've given works for us as well. In fact, I would remind Trump and all those who would walk away from NATO, Article 5 has only been invoked once, just once in our NATO history, and it was done to stand with America after we were attacked on 9/11. We should never forget it.
All right, so let's break this down. The comment that Trump made, it absolutely was gratuitous. Look, it's one thing to say just the first part. If he were to say just the first part, yeah, if they want our protection, they better pay their dues. That part's actually fair. I have no problem with that. Some people would have a problem with even that. I don't have a problem with that. The problem was the next part where he's like, and if they don't pay their dues, I'd encourage Russia to do whatever the hell they want. That's like, fuck them, and I'm actually on the side of Russia if they decide to take back more than just parts of Ukraine, or whether it be Lithuania or Poland or whoever the fuck, right? There's a lot of post-Soviet states, and I think in Putin's heart of hearts, he wants all of them. And this is Trump being like, hey man, open season, because I feel like the U.S. has gotten a raw deal from NATO. We're pulling most of the weight. They need to pay up. If they don't, I don't give a fuck. Do whatever you want. That is genuinely destabilizing to say green light on shit like that. It's not good, right? It's not good. So that is a ripe for criticism thing for him to say. Now, having said all that, I can't understand for the life of me why Biden is leaning into this thing right now. Why Biden is leaning into, we need the $95 billion bill. Look, don't get me wrong. I understand all the arguments for you want to help Ukraine, right? Because if they collapse and Russia just takes it over, well, that sets a horrible precedent. It's just the classic, like, might makes right. Not that we never also set that precedent in 1,000 different ways, but to have, the country just get taken over like that and the borders are meaningless, etc. I mean, that's a real issue. Wait, where was I going? I totally forgot. My brain just shit the bed. I'm going to blame my cold for my brain absolutely shitting the bed here. But okay, here's the point I was going to make is, guys, of all the things to lean into in the election year, it's going to be a bill that gives $14 billion more to Israel as they're committing a genocide? That's the thing that your big own and your big gotcha of Trump and MAGA is, hey, us Democrats want the bill that goes $14 billion more to Israel so they can keep carpet bombing babies and starving people to death. We want to send that money, and these guys are blocking it. Look, again, I think the Ukraine part is different, right? I think that's way more reasonable to send money there than it is to send it to Israel. But if you package these things together, which is what they did, I'm sorry, I got to vote no. Not a penny more to Israel. Not a penny more to Israel. At this point, you know, I compare that to sending money to like a serial killer. Sending weapons to a serial killer knowing damn well what they're going to use the weapons for. That's the point we're at. And you call a press conference to brag as if this is some sort of big victory for the American people, a $95 billion bill in foreign aid? I mean, Jesus Christ. If you were going to do a big attack ad against the Republicans, there's a million, not attack ad, attack speech against the Republicans, there's a million ways you could do it. Do a standalone bill, and to be fair, they're working on this, a standalone bill to expand the child tax credit, and then come out and hit the Republicans for not being in favor of the child tax credit. You know, hey, this will help. We were able to cut child poverty 50%. Now, there was a sunset provision on it, so it went away, but we want to get back to reducing it 50%, and the Republicans are blocking it. Do a standalone bill on paid family leave. Say, we're in favor of it, they're against it. We voted for it, they're against it. There's a million fucking things you could do. The Democratic governor of Connecticut just decided, I'm going to wipe out all the medical debt for people who live in Connecticut. What? I'm sure a lot of people hearing that go, I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't even know that was possible. Well, apparently it is. And he did it. And he worked with the debt collective, which you only have to pay pennies on the dollar to wipe out the debt. And they did that. They made a deal. They wiped out the debt. Okay. Why doesn't Biden do that? And then when the Republicans crow and whine and bitch and moan, he comes out and says, go ahead. You want to fight this battle? Go ahead. I'm in favor of wiping out all your medical debt. 40% of Americans have medical debt. I'm in favor of getting rid of all of it for all of you. These guys are trying to block it. But instead, you call a press conference, and it's about the $95 billion bill, which sends $60 billion to Ukraine, $14 billion to Israel, and the rest to Taiwan, and you act like this is a... Chuck Schumer was doing this too. A historic piece of legislation. Historic? You guys do this every week. You say, this is absolutely vital and absolutely necessary. It's a must pass. We have to pass it. That's a must pass? We have 500,000 homeless people in this country, and they never get any piece of legislation to get a fucking roof over their head? Why isn't that a must pass? Why isn't it a must pass that, homelessness increase if 500,000 Americans are homeless? Why aren't you rushing to do something about that? You're rushing to send more money to fucking Israel as they committed genocide? Fuck out of here, man. God damn it. So, look, again, I understand the criticism on the NATO thing. But as per usual, it's like they lean into the wrong points. Biden is leaning into the wrong point. And by the way, final point I'll make here is compare their records, right, when it comes to Russia. You'd be shocked what you find. Because Trump armed Ukrainians pretty early on. He also did a NATO buildup on Russia's border. He also axed the oil pipeline deal that Exxon wanted and Russia wanted. So policy-wise, he was actually kind of standoffish to Russia, even though he was accused of being Vladimir Putin's puppet. Biden, honestly, to his credit, came in and he approved the pipeline. He was like, okay, look, none of our business. You guys want to do your pipeline? Go ahead and do your pipeline. Right? So in some key ways, Biden was more dovish and Trump was more hawkish. But the way he talks about it here is like, it almost paints the opposite picture. It paints the opposite picture as if like, you're bowing to a Russian dictator. Well, he could say you were, quote, bowing to a Russian dictator when you approved the pipeline. Is that fair? I don't think that's fair. Look, to be clear, the second part of what Trump said kind of is that, right? It kind of is. But the point I'm making is more about emphasis. Is like, of all the things to call a press conference on and berate the other side, I like that he's fighting. I like that he called him dumb and shameful. I like all that. I do. But can you do it in the context of something that makes more fucking sense? Can you please do that? Instead of, swinging your dick around over sending $14 billion more to complete a genocide. That just drives me crazy. That drives me crazy. You're going to brag about this bill and chastise Republicans for blocking it. Again, to be fair, the Republicans are blocking this bill not because it's sending money to Israel. They want to send more money to Israel. They're blocking it because of the Ukraine money. They don't want to send anything to Ukraine. They want to send more money to Israel. So their priorities are totally fucking shit. But they ended up blocking this bill, which is the right thing to do, but they did it for the wrong reason. Okay, but this is not the thing I would lean into if I was Biden. It's not. I would vote against this bill because I wouldn't want to send a penny more to Israel. Period. So, you're also just leaving the field open for Trump to come across as the politician who cares more about domestic politics, who cares more about Americans. It's not true. His policies domestically were abysmal. All the tax cuts for the rich, all the deregulation, et cetera. We don't need to go through all that. But you're leaving the lane open for him to be like, what, you don't want NATO to pay their dues? What, you want the U.S. to pick up everybody's slack around the world? Hey, I want to look after our country. Joe Biden cares more about NATO and Ukraine and, whatever, Taiwan. And I'm about America first. He's about America last. You kind of open the door to those kinds of arguments that the right makes. And it's bullshit when they make those arguments because they don't care about America at all. How many times have you heard, stop sending money to Ukraine and look after our own people? And then when a bill comes up to actually help our own people, they're like, no, don't do that. That's socialism. So they're lying. They're bullshitters, but it gives them a political lane where they can posture in a way that's appealing. So anyway, there you have it. I like that he called him dumb. I like that he called him shameful. I like that he's attacking him. But what I would say is, if I'm him, I would make a much bigger deal of the 91 criminal charges and the 4 indictments and the fact that Trump said he wants to terminate the Constitution, the fact he says he wants to be a dictator. Like, those are the things I would really, really hammer away on. I would hammer away on those things, and I would hammer away on, I would try to do something good, like extend the child tax credit, and then go after the Republicans when they oppose it, right? Roe v. Wade, you could also hit him over that. That's an obvious W for Democrats. Do that. I wouldn't necessarily lean into, we're in favor of the $95 billion going to Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan, and they're not. Yeah, I don't know about that one, dog.
Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.